Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be doing some easy DIY wall decor ideas that are inexpensive to make. So let's get started. What you will need for the first DIY is a picture frame. This is an 8x10 frame that I found at the dollar store. I also found these sponge letters, some acrylic paint, and then a plate to put it in, and finally a hot glue gun. So you're going to start by taking apart the picture frame, and you don't need the back or the insert anymore. All you need is the glass and the frame part. Then taking your alphabet letters, you're going to want to spell out your quote. So I wrote, "Make today great." I arranged all the letters and tried to figure out my spacing. Then you're going to want to flip them backwards so that when you turn the frame around, it'll be facing the right way. So I'm just arranging my letters again, and then I measured it out, made sure there was equal distance on either side, and then put some tape there. Next, go ahead and dip your sponge letters into the paint and then stamp them onto the glass. So I used different amounts of pressure, either lighter or heavier pressure, to make each letter look a little bit different, and I kind of like the look of like distressed, so if the letters aren't perfect, I like that. And then I just went ahead and stamped the quote onto the glass. Once the paint was dry, I peeled off the tape, and then I finally glued the glass into the frame. Because I'm not putting the backing back onto the frame, there's no other way to hold the glass in place, so I had to glue it. And that's the finished DIY. I think it looks really cool, and I love the way it turned out. Next, moving on to an even easier DIY, you will need some small picture frames. These are 5x7, I purchased at the dollar store, and some shopping bags. I really like the ones from Aritzia. They have some really cool art on them. So essentially, I'm going to cut the art off the bag and put it in the frame. So I'm cutting it, and then I used the glass of the frame to measure how big I needed it to be, and then I reassembled the frame. This one was super easy. Let's move on to something a little more challenging. For this one, you're going to need some decorative glass filler, and this is from Michaels. Also some Mod Podge and some acrylic paint and painter's tape, and then some sponge brushes. And finally, you'll need a canvas that you don't necessarily like anymore. This one just doesn't match my room, but I got it on sale at HomeSense. I really like the quote on the inside, so I'm using some painter's tape to tape that off so that I don't get any glue or paint on the inside. Then I'm taking my white acrylic paint and just painting over the yellow chevron. This is because when we glue the rocks on top, it might show through, so I just wanted a white background. So I let that dry. It took about 3 coats and let it dry overnight. Next, I'm taking a generous amount of Mod Podge and layering that in sections over the canvas and sprinkling the decorative glass filler on top. I really love this glass filler. It's really sparkly, and it looks so pretty on. I considered using glitter, but I thought this was just so much more unique and pretty, and it looks expensive, so I really like this. It was a little bit time consuming layering the Mod Podge and pressing down the glass filler on top so that it wasn't loose, but I covered the entire canvas and let that dry overnight. Then the next day I went back in with more Mod Podge and put it on top. This was a little bit tricky because it's like a really uneven surface, but I made it happen, and I covered the entire thing with another layer of Mod Podge to make sure that all the beads were really stuck on there. And then again, I let that dry. Then it was time to peel off the tape. It was a little bit tricky because of the Mod Podge and how many layers I put, but it looks beautiful and it was worth it in the end. Then finally, I decided to go in with some sealer, and this is like a glossy finish, so I just sprayed that on top, and it made sure that the glass filler was securely on the canvas, and look how pretty it looks. I love it. Last but not least, for this DIY, you will need a plain white canvas. This is from the dollar store, some painter's tape again, some more acrylic paint, this one's silver, another sponge brush, and some Sharpies. So I started off by measuring out some stripes and then taping them off with some painter's tape. And then once I firmly pressed it down, I went back in and remeasured the spacing to make sure that it was perfect, and then I began to paint a thin coat of my silver acrylic paint, and it dries really quickly. The canvas absorbs the paint well, so it shouldn't take too long to dry. Once it was all dry, I peeled off the tape. I love this part, it's like revealing a surprise. Then I took my thin Sharpie and I began to freehand a quote in cursive on here. This quote says, "You can never be overdressed or overeducated," and I just really love that. Makes me feel empowered. Yeah, so I wrote that out and I tried to make the spacing equal, and then I decided to go over some of the words in a thicker Sharpie to just make them stand out more. Then finally I decided to go in and add a little cute border to the canvas because I thought it looked a little too plain, and that's about it. So those are the DIYs of this video, but if you really enjoyed, give this video a thumbs up to let me know, and I'd be happy to do more. I have more ideas in mind, so I would love to do that. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye!